Magic. Welcome in. My name is Amanda Helen, and I love to talk about all things related to nervous system care, working deliciously, and feminine embodiment. And this video will be about what to do when you are triggered. Being triggered is not fun. It can be very overwhelming and you can feel a loss of control. So we're going to talk about some reasons as to why that is today, as well as what I would suggest as far as how to intercept when you're triggered, the way in which you act. A little bit about me is that my undergrad is in neuroscience. I also minored in dance, and I love to take my education and apply anything related to the brain to life. And it's important to remember that the brain extends throughout the body by way of the spinal cord and the nervous system. So it's all interrelated. But I like to take this knowledge that the brain learns off of, a page or a diagram and really make it applicable to everyday living. So being triggered today, let's talk about this. What does it feel like to be triggered? Just think about that for a moment. If you're listening to this, what does it feel like in the body to be triggered? And I asked a question on my YouTube community board about thinking of a time or a situation that most triggers you. So not something that triggers you most often, but that triggers you in the deepest way, where you feel the deepest loss of control. So it might help to think of a situation and then notice what sensations might arise in the body in response to that. Typically, some answers could be that thoughts speed up quite rapidly, and the heart rate starts to increase, the breath shallows. There's a lot of energy emitted through the system, so there's a lot of energy in the limbs. Stomach can start to churn. And essentially, some people say when they're triggered that they sort of black out, that they lose the ability to have control over their actions. And there's a reason for this. So at the lower part of the brain, and if you're not watching this on video, I'm kind of cupping the very base of my brain right where my neck meets my skull. And that is called our limbic system. It's our survival part of the brain. It's the part of our brain that is designed to keep us alive, whether it is avoiding danger, like actually physical threats from our environment, or allows us the energy to get up and forage for food, to hunt. It's associated with survival. And now I'm cupping the front of my brain, the right behind the forehead. This is the frontal lobe or the prefrontal cortex. And this is assigned to the part of our brain that creates meaning in life, high level thinking. It's knowing that you're here, and it's knowing that if I say this now, it will influence my life in this way later. It's having foresight, it's having discernment. It's all of these things that we lose when we're extremely triggered. So I don't know who else has experienced this, but what if you get into an argument with a loved one, with a family member, with a romantic partner, with one of your children, and you say or do something that you don't mean? This is because it doesn't feel very good. This is because that prefrontal cortex kind of goes dark, for lack of better words. Like it's not online when we're in a state of survival, when we're triggered. And this is because the body is just associated, concerned with staying alive, whether that's hunting, foraging food, whether that's escaping from a threat to the environment. So it's more concerned with the immediacy of the moment and getting out of the situation in the moment. And this has helped us to adapt as a species throughout time, but it's not necessarily relevant to every situation now in our modern world. A lot of our stress lives in our mind. There's internal distress, the way that we think, the way that we're perceiving the world, perceiving others, the way we're perceiving ourselves. And then these little tiny constant stressors that are happening, like a negative email that you get, or the stressor of like environmental toxins, or being stuck in traffic while you're running late, that aren't a threat to our immediate survival, but they trigger a similar response. We're not going to get too much into, if at all, the constant everyday stressors. That's a different video. But for today, I want to think of that like high level T trigger. Like I am just triggered. I black out. I don't remember what I'm saying or doing, or I look back at that and I feel shame. And I want to give us some tools to operate in that state so that we feel more agency, so that we feel more empowered. Feel free to say hi if you're tuning in live. Goddess of yay, ye or yay. Hanging out with in-laws after being triggered on Sunday, video help. I feel rage. So you felt triggered, and I totally hear you in that. Are you feeling triggered in the moment, or this is a leftover of being triggered? Emotions like rage or fear, anything where there's that extra energy, are signs of activation in the body. So that means your nervous system, you have two branches. In general, for the sake of this video, two branches. The sympathetic, which is this fight or flight. This is this energies released. This is a beautiful thing, right? It gives us energy. It gives us life. And then we have parasympathetic, which is a discharge, and it's rest and digest. And it is the allowing of restoration and regeneration in the body to occur after all of that energy was emitted. So when we're feeling feelings of rage, think of like all the energy in your body. You want to do something. You want to mobilize energy. Think of fear. You want to hide. You want to dart. You want to activate. So I think this is a really good place to start, because number one is identifying that there's adrenaline running through the body, that you are in a state of stress, that you are triggered. And I know that sounds silly or obvious, but often when we're triggered, we don't even know we're triggered. We're just in a different state of being. So if you can bring consciousness and awareness to the state of like, I am triggered right now, I'm activated. What is that doing? That's turning on the prefrontal cortex, which is that space of consciousness. So just by knowing that you are in a state of being triggered, you're already turning on that frontal lobe, which is the first step. Unapologetically, Coco, I miss you so much. Hello. Thank you for being here. I can feel your energy. When I get triggered, I go in full, complete isolation mode. So this is good information, right? That is your survival technique, to hide, to ward off any of the external stimuli. I'm curious what it feels like in your body. So that's your strategy. But so maybe goddess, you can say, what does rage feel like in the body? And unapologetically, Coco, what does it feel like to go in complete isolation mode? And when you can start to notice the signals and build a relationship with them, you can know when they're present. So that is step one. And I do want to pay attention to this poll that I posted. Okay, 30 of you have voted. Wonderful. So I said, which category triggers your nervous system most intensely, not the most often? So 30% of you said work, deadlines, expectations, the pressure to perform. 43% of you relational, conflict with significant others, family, kids. This was the winner of the poll, the most voted on was relational, which that makes sense to me from my conversations with clients, friends, myself. World events, 7%. So a general overwhelm at the state of humanity, feeling bogged down by the state of the world. Internal, 17%. That's still a pretty high number, I think, when thinking of how potent our thoughts are. Like 17% of us, negative self-talk, shame, and shadows will deeply trigger. This is where mental health and being proactive about mental health is really important. And then 3%, the one person commented on in the comments. For me, it's implied scarcity, not actual scarcity, but the idea that we could run out of money, be homeless, be in poverty. Thank you for sharing that. I totally hear that. And that is definitely rooted in survival, because with scarcity means I don't have enough food. I don't, and if I don't have enough money, I won't have food or shelter. It's a bit of that world events meets internal, right? It's not really the state of the world, but it is this internal thinking. It is held within the brain, and it might be a little situational as well, but that is an important category to address for sure. So let me get back to the chat here. Okay. So the next part of this, so one, acknowledge that you're stressed, and two, create space away from the stimulus if possible. So step away from the situation. And this can be really hard because let's say you're in an argument with a loved one or in conflict. Now, there's merit in working through conflict when you're activated, but when you're like capital T triggered and that prefrontal cortex is not on and your body is simply in a state of wanting to survive, you're not in your highest state of being. You're not thinking with a discerning mind, and you're not in a big picture state. When we are super stressed, we're very narrowly focused, very defensive. So if you can peel yourself away in a respectful way, right? You say, I want to table this. I want to come back to this later. And you can remove yourself from the situation. Then you can work with your nervous system and come back, maybe not fully calm, but activated and clear, activated and coherent, not triggered in a state where you're only out to defend yourself. Same thing if you're at work and you're hyper focused on, let's say, a presentation that has a certain deadline, and you feel so triggered that you almost like blacked out just working on it, but not getting anywhere and spinning, and you're in a state of panic. Step away, just move away from it. And I know that this is not always possible to create space away from the stimulus, right? But I'll give some examples. So let's say it's at work. Let's say you're, working from home in an office at a desk. Maybe you have a service related job. Take space. So take a walk. If you're more not working on like an hourly schedule, if you can take a step outside, walk around the office, you can walk outside, like get away from the thing that's bugging you. Go to a different room, go to the break room, go to the bathroom. If you need something more like hourly paid, you could go to the bathroom for a second and just like shake it off. We'll talk about what to do next, but you want to remove yourself. If you're on a phone call with someone in conflict, if you can politely hang up the call and just say, I need a moment, I need to take some space. And then maybe go on a drive. If you're someone who likes to drive, like take a drive, get away from the thing that's irritating you, because that will continue to trigger. And you want to kind of get like root the system back into a state of feeling some degree of safety. That's how you work with the nervous system. Now, it's interesting whenever I go to like a bridal shower or something, there's an opportunity to give advice. And one I often hear for couples is don't go to bed angry. And I understand this is this idea of like work through conflict before sleeping. But I think if you just, that means that you have to work it out. And that puts this pressure on, like, even though we're both triggered, we have to work through this. In my opinion, it's about separating first, lowering the trigger, lowering the stress response, and then coming back when you're out of that state of trigger, when you're out of that blackout state, because nothing helpful will come from that. It's very unlikely. I don't want to say nothing ever comes, but very unlikely. And that will conduct ourselves in a way that we're proud of. So it's about, maybe that means sleeping separately for the night just to calm down. Maybe that means separating for an hour and coming back and working through things before bed. But it's not about continuing to push through conflict when we're both activated. Okay. So we talked about relational. If you're in an argument, remove yourself, go to a different room, go outside, politely hang up the call, go on a drive. General overwhelm. If you're watching the news or reading an article or scrolling through social media and you feel a general state of overwhelm, or if you're in a conversation with somebody, turn it off. Just like if you're starting to feel that like panic, remove yourself. It doesn't mean you can't come and inform yourself later when you're more resourced, but to get yourself out of that kind of blackout state where that prefrontal cortex is off and you're in reactivity, you're in despair, remove yourself from social media, exit out of the screen, leave a conversation politely, respectfully, go into nature, go on a walk, get your perspective, like bring your body back into this moment. Because I think, often, especially with news, we're so tapped into the whole world in a way that in society we might not be plugged in like this every single day for every single nuance. And it can be very overwhelming to hold the whole world in our consciousness. So taking some space and coming back to your current situation in your body is going to help the body to feel safe. If you're watching a documentary that's really heavy, take a pause, move through information, stay informed as you want to stay informed, but do so, we call it like titrating slowly, like drop by drop, so that your nervous system can hold it. Space, slowness. Internally, in this case, the trigger is your thoughts. So to get space from your thoughts would be to shift the attention down into your body. And we'll talk about some techniques of how to do that later on in this video. So the next piece here, so 1 is knowing that you're stressed. 2, if possible, create space away from the stimulus. And if there's no way to create space, like for whatever reason, it's just not an option, pause. If you can, and this is such a big ask when both things, right? Stepping away takes some grit, it takes some discipline, and then pausing takes some grit and some discipline. But you need that like moment to just breathe and remove and back up. You can think of like thinking of your back space, thinking of your feet on the ground, and just taking a pause, because that shows your body that, okay, there's a bigger perspective here. Now, the third thing, and this is really the point of the video that I wanted to drive home and share, is do something with the body. So rather than talk your way out of a state of stress, rather than, oh, you're okay, or positive affirmations, I am safe, like those things do something in the sense that they turn on the prefrontal cortex. But what I found the most helpful for me when I feel really activated is to put the body in a certain position. So when I say that, I mean a yoga posture, a breathing exercise, a movement practice, shaking, discharging energy through running, through doing some sort of, in general, movement, but you can also do certain postures. The reason for this is like the brain is moving at rapid speed, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to think your way out of something when the way that you're thinking is in a state of stress, rapid fire. When I feel super stressed, if I have access to a clean floor that I don't mind hitting child's pose on, I'll do that. I just hit the floor, I go to child's pose, forehead to the ground. If you don't know this posture, you can just Google it, say child's pose yoga. Plenty of examples will come up. And I take some deep breaths into my belly, into my lungs, into my back, probably 5. And then even if I hold it for a minute, I feel a complete shift in my energy, like my whole system down regulates. So I know that all I have to do is get my body into that shape and to take 5 deep breaths, and then my body will respond. There's no need to think my way out of the state of being. And that's what I love about some of these shapes or protocols or ways to shift the body that we'll talk about, is that you just have to get there. And I think it's important to know that you decide it before you're stressed. Because when you're triggered, when you're activated, it's really hard to reason. I call this the SOS plan that I use when I work with my clients, and I help them find the unique one for them. If you want support with this, you can sign up for a 3-session coaching package with me. The link is in the description, the show notes. And you could do that right now if you want to. If you want to work with me long-term, you could come to my website and set an application in. And then if you want to learn a bit more about your nervous system, I have a course called Nervous System of a Goddess. Level 1 is soften, and it is about a little bit of these dynamics. There's tools like meditation, there's yoga practices, there's somatic practices to help you interact with your nervous system in a certain way. But we'll talk about a few of them today in this video. I just wanted you to know that every nervous system is different, and every posture is going to resonate, or every practice is going to resonate with different people in different ways. And I've learned this over and over again as I continue to work with my clients and help them with their systems. So an example I gave was child's pose. I also love forward fold. You're standing, and then you hang your upper body over your standing legs. You can bend your knees a lot, and you grab your elbows like this. You let your head hang, and you might move a little bit side to side. You might shake the head one way or the other. And this really decompresses the spine because you're flipped upside down, and fresh blood just flows to the brain. Like there's something about flipping your perspective upside down. And I take 3 deep breaths, and it's a release of the back line of the body, the back of the legs, the lower back, the mid back, the neck. Just feels wonderful. And then you slowly roll up, stacking, 1 vertebra at a time, up, all the way to the top. And you might hold that forward fold for a minute, 5 breaths if you don't have a timer, 10 breaths. Take deep breaths though. So you have child's pose, you have forward fold. Another one you could do is shake. I've talked about this before, but when you're triggered, you have a ton of energy that's been mobilized in the body to, forage or hunt the food, to run away or fight the threat. And so it can be helpful to move and shaking the body. And yes, actually you could do 1 limb at a time, shaking each limb for like 30 seconds to a minute. You could shake the whole body. I've been doing that sometimes kind of before bed just to shake off my day. And you shake it for, 2 minutes or something, and it just discharges excess energy. Again, if I'm stressed, if I can't go to bed, I don't think my way out of it. For me, it feels really uncomfortable to try to meditate my way into a state of calm. If I'm super triggered, I need to get into the body, and move my body or put my body in a shape, and then let that shape, let that movement work its medicine. And then I can come to a place of more, meditation or reflection or affirmations. So body up, body up. If you're a runner, and you can afford this, you could just put on your shoes and go for a run, just discharge, get that endorphins going. And I think intuitively we know this, right? It feels good to exercise or to dance or to go work out hard when we're in a state of stress. Follow that, do that. And remember that it's optimized when matched with restoration at the end. So if you can do a meditation or stretching after to give the body a state to recover, that's the piece that a lot of my followers often need to hear is yes, be hardcore, discharge the energy, and also match that with a state of active rest and be intentional about your recovery. A lot of you who follow me are high achievers, high performers, and you deal with large amounts of pressure, large amounts of stress. And you are intuitive about, cycling and doing CrossFit and running, and those things all help to manage the stress. But the part that a lot of you miss is that active recovery because you think that it's not productive. So after intercepting this capital T trigger, then sit with your nervous system. 15 minutes, something you could. Again, you want to think about this stuff ahead of time. So have your favorite meditation, have your favorite body scan, have your rest practice decided, have your posture decided, your movement practice decided. And it will depend on where you are. For example, right now I'm in an office space. I would not like to hit child's pose here. Gross, not on this floor. But I could stand and do a standing forward fold, because I'm not on the floor. My feet would be on the floor. The rest of my body would be hanging down. I could go into a larger bathroom stall and shake it out. So there's different tools that you can pull out at different times. Do I have time to go for a run now? No. But you can do these little things to help you feel more grounded. Are any questions coming up, you guys? I hope this is helpful. Okay, I'll just do a recap. And you can ask me questions in the comments if you want to. Definitely be sure to like the video. That helps me so much as my channel continues to grow. And I so appreciate all of you interacting. I love hearing from you. It's a definite way to help me out. So number one, if you're super triggered, if you just feel out of control of your body, one, acknowledge that you're stressed and turn that prefrontal cortex on. Two, create space away from the stimulus. Take a pause, remove your body, take a beat. And three, do something with the body to influence the nervous system. Put the body in a shape, a posture, a movement practice, and then you can come back to the conflict. You can come back to the situation in a more resourced way. I hope this was helpful. So grateful for all of you, and I'll see you in the next one.